Web3 integration, and the creator economy revolution. Omer Luzzatti on Gigaverse's Blockchain Vision, Part 2. In this episode, Dr. Jemma Green continues her conversation with Omer Luzzatti, exploring how Gigaverse's Web3 integration could revolutionize creator economies through blockchain technology. They dive deeper into why community token economies are essential for the future of creator audience engagement, how secondary markets could amplify creator value beyond traditional platforms, and Gigaverse's innovative approach to content moderation that adapts to different community standards, along with their exciting partnerships including Music City San Francisco for their reality show style integration and major music podcast networks. They discuss how they're solving real-world challenges like quality content discovery and community-specific moderation. I'm your co-host Anthony Pearl, and whether you're an investor or a startup looking for insights, it's time to get unblocked. As we get ready to pick up the conversation, here's a quick recap from last episode.
Communities that you're targeting to use Gigaverse are in Web3 and blockchain. But my question related to that was, do you have any Web3 or blockchain elements to the Gigaverse product? Are you talking about tokens in the blockchain sense of the word?
So we haven't targeted crypto communities per se. Now, when we are thinking about, back to your questions about the Web3, the first thing that creators, the one that we are working with, is asking us is ticketed events. So basically, I want people come to my podcast to pay $1, $2, $10. But the way that we're thinking about it in terms of the engagement, in terms of monetizing within the community, is these elements of points, rewards, and things like that. That's one of the thoughts that we have. Obviously, for crypto communities, it's pretty obvious. For creators and other type of communities, this is a little bit more challenging now to think that forward ahead.
You know, what's fascinating about everything that you were just saying is it kind of replicates what is happening in the free-to-air TV market. If you look at, a reality TV program as a good example, where there's an element of quality content, or debatably quality, but content that's being created. And what actually happens after that is there are often people that are separate shows, which are talking about the main show, as well as podcasts and other things that are happening. So what you're essentially trying to do is to replicate that, but in this kind of an environment that enables you to monetize that process so that people will actually benefit from that ongoing discussion. And is that kind of the way of also making sure that you've got quality? Because that was one of the things I think that has gone wrong with a lot of the other platforms is there's been no way of really measuring quality. There's been so much rubbish out there that's what just saturated it and people just disappeared.
Yeah, so Abby just mentioned me and said that I can talk about Music City San Francisco. So Music City San Francisco is that exactly what they want to do with our platform. It's basically a reality show. What is Music City San Francisco? It's a new building actually in San Francisco that is the bottom 3 floors, podcast room and a karaoke room and a big arena and for events and for concerts. And then they have a hotel on top, right? It's basically to bring rock stars back to the city and to create a place for them for young bands to live. So we are partnering and they want to do a reality show. Exactly like that, showing, the band and then showing the room and then showing the fans and then, okay. So all that is part of it. But you're touching the other point, which is then to have the community discussing it, living it. And it's true for almost every content. Netflix movies, from Netflix movies to sports are obviously watching together sport events and then talking about it within the fans. So yes, now in terms of your second comment about the quality, I definitely want, and Abby knows it because that's something that I'm trying always to push for, but then I'm aware that it's also something that we need to be aware not to push too far for, is to have quality discussions. Now, how can we with AI create quality discussions other than, adding information, etc.? And we can build a prototype for it. We can call out when people are making fallacies like ad hominem, right? Instead of talking about your argument, I'm talking about you. instead of I'm creating a straw man argument, right? I'm inventing something that no one actually said, and I'm attacking that figure instead of talking to the point. So all these things are things that with the AI that now is listening and understands everything that we're saying, we can analyze the discussion and move it maybe to a better place. But I'm also aware that that focus might be a little bit too narrow. And I'm aware that people sometimes want to just talk, right?
Well, quality is a big battle on any media platform. I mean, you look at Netflix, which gets criticized for ending shows in many fans' cases prematurely, but they're doing that to generate new material and new quality so that you don't get bogged down in what is old content or, continuing old series so they can bring new things in all the time. And I think that's the challenge, isn't it? Because how do you actually manage that so that your platform doesn't get flooded with average content and people having discussions that are, yes, there's a small community that are interested, but largely if there becomes lots of small communities talking about things that don't have much quality about them, then that's where the problem is actually finding the quality stuff.
Yeah. So maybe I'll talk about how we're thinking about moderation in general and for communities. So obviously legally, there are several things that must be allowed or disallowed on any platform, right? But these, and I'm talking especially about the United States, these are very, very clear and very, very narrow. I mean, the freedom of speech obviously is one of the amendments and is a big thing. And there are only four things that actually you cannot talk about from legal perspective. Obviously, things like weapons, selling weapons, direct attacks and threats to a specific individual. So these are very, very specific, and we must obviously obey the law. Then what we are building is basically for every community to enable their own jargon and their own language by providing them with the ability also to change things. I'll give you an example. If we as a platform decide that some words are something that we don't want to have on the platform, right? And we can come with these words or whatever, with the intent of these words as well. But then if we take hip hop community that is talking about hip hop lyrics, right? They can definitely come and alter and change these global rules of the platform in order to adapt it to their own community, which is more tolerant, obviously, for some language. Then even for every event, you can decide that now I want within that event to allow or to disallow certain jargon or certain language. So we do, because we think about building it for communities, we know that some communities have different tolerance and want to talk about certain things, obviously according to the law. So that is one thing that is completely different than any other platform today. The other element, which is very much also close to it, is what can you do when people are saying something that is not according to your laws or according to your community rules, right? And even there, we're allowing much more to the hosts and to the community owners. So I'll give you the example where it all started. Matt Sorum is also one of the founders of Gigaverse. He was a drummer of Guns N' Roses. He did an event with his fans. And the event was about a record that was sold that wasn't Guns N' Roses. And he didn't want questions about Guns N' Roses. Okay? So obviously for us, it's very, very easy to come and to say every time that someone is writing Guns N' Roses, delete the question, right? And that's what most platforms, if not all of them, will do in such a case. But what if someone is asking about Axl Rose, right? Or someone is coming and asking, oh, in 1991, in that tour, why didn't you do this or that, right? So we need to understand the intent, and the AI can understand the intent that Axl Rose was part of Guns N' Roses. So if no questions about Guns N' Roses, then no question about Axl Rose.
Or Sweet Child of Mine.
So, and we have a name drop here of Axl Rose. You can see and read more, and he's vocalist and co-founder. So we can understand the intent. But now it's even the second order question. Okay, so what are we going to do about someone asking about Axl Rose? And here we allow the host to make decisions. In some cases, it may be delete the question. In some other cases, completely ban the individual from the discussion, kick them out, or have the AI answer the question. If the question was something that the AI can answer, okay, I won't be bothered, but I don't care that that the AI will answer the question about. So that's the way that we're approaching moderation in a completely different way than what is available today on other platforms.
I mean, there's so many new things here that people wouldn't even know about until they kind of experience it for the first time. So once they're in the tent, they can see all of the different toys and get really excited and use them. But before that, what would you say is like the biggest sort of challenge to adoption of this new experience?
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic question because Abi here, by the way, is head of product and also his role to make it simple and to have people work with. We are builders, right? We come with ideas and we build them. But then we need to obviously sell them, right? And to have people exposed to it. And you wouldn't even know about name drop without something happen here, right? So, or that you can trigger a poll, right? So there is a question of the product itself and how to make it visible. And then there is a question of how do we market it? How do we package it? And how do we let people know about it? I don't have a very, very good answer here, but we are working our way to, to move forward is basically to work with partners that are much closer to the creators. So in that essence, it's a little bit like a B2B2C. And they are also the one that are giving us feedback about the solution and what they want to see. For example, ticketing is must have for them to bring the podcasters on board. So Pantheon podcasters are one partner. They are the biggest music podcasters network in the world, or at least in the US. Metallica is there and bands that I mentioned before, and they introduce us to additional podcast networks. The other one is Tier 1 Entertainment in the Philippines. They mentioned before, they have 400 million end users. It's a creator house.
They're sitting on the fence with that response, Omer.
Yeah, but the names that are mentioned are Spotify, Apple Podcast. Obviously, this is different. What Pantheon is doing is basically increasing the revenue for their podcasters by bringing relevant ads. And obviously, the podcast itself is on Spotify and all of this. So at Tier 1 Entertainment, they have many creators. And I mentioned before, political figures, gamers, chefs, right? Young people that are just going the streets and telling their fans that they're going from point A to point B in Manila, and they have 100,000 of people watching them walking. So with them, we are engaged now in the next 4 to 6 months to try out multiple use cases, and each use case, some other features actually would shine. Fact checking, I don't think it's very relevant for people walking the street, but for obviously political discussions, it's very relevant.
Got it. And it sounds like, because there are so many different sort of segments, the approach that you're taking, I mean, you just said B2B2C, but within that, the way that you're going about getting customers is quite different.
Yeah, we made the decision to focus on podcast and podcast live. We did several research demonstrating the appetite to go live, B, to create a community around them, and C, to monetize better. So if I remember correctly, something like 72%. And then we segmented it into various parts. Sport is very, very big for this, right? And indeed, we have creator. She's very close to the UFC women fights. So we're going to have something with the UFC. And over there, for example, after the fight, it's to open Gigaverse and to have fans coming and asking questions, paying for $5 to ask a question and to be answered by the fighter. But then, especially because of Tier 1 and because of we see other opportunities, we're opening it more now to additional type of creators, not only podcasters, and also communities, more and more to shine also that part of the community. So I think to answer your question, maybe more kind of philosophically, when to focus and when to open, right? is a big question. I think that and there are several approaches here. We are finding now via these different verticals, let's call them this way, we are finding what is actually working, what is more relevant, what is less relevant. And then basically also with tier one, their approach is then to create a playbook that you can replicate more and more and more with additional creators of the type. So that is while obviously building the solution and making it simple for people to onboard.
Got it.
Again, it's quite interesting because it's kind of not dissimilar to the TV landscape where they partner with production houses that deliver bunches of content, as well, and a variety of that sort of content and controlling it that way. So it's interesting that the model is not dissimilar to what's working in mainstream, but taking it to a level that's much more accessible than, paying for a TV show through a production house.
Yeah, and you got it spot on. And Jacob has a question here. So unlike, I don't know, Gemma, if you're a host, Anthony is definitely a host because he started it. So he has another tab with insights and he can see the questions. So Jacob is asking, can it get better with the existing discovery is broken?
So how do you think about solving the cold start problem for emerging creators that don't have an audience yet? Or does Gigaverse assume they'll come in already with an audience?
So we are not trying currently to solve the discovery within the platform. What we enable them though, Jacob, is to utilize all the other platforms that are there in order to engage with their existing audience. So if you have a YouTube Live, and many of them do, YouTube Live, Instagram, Twitch, LinkedIn, right? You can stream this on these platforms and have the people seeing it. The moment that they want to ask a question, the moment that they want to be on stage, then they will come to Gigaverse. So we see it currently not as a solution that the podcasters that have, let's say, thousands of people watching them will move all the thousands here. We see it more kind of the salon or the intimate environment that the 100, 200, 300 fans will come and then will spread. The moment that we will have more communities, the moment that we will have more content, currently we have something like 400 communities and around, I can immediately check, but I think something like 5,000 users. At the moment that we will have content and the ability to incentivize people to come, oh, now this is happening, now that is happening, to blend things together, and then we'll need a real good discovery mechanism. That's again going back to the balance between to have a serious platform that you come because you want to hear a discussion or because you want to see your chef or cook with your chef versus a place that you scroll and jump from one event to another. A good discovery with a good algorithm for discovery is essential for Instagram, TikTok, obviously, and Twitter, because they want to promote to you content that will keep you engaged and keep you more on the platform. We are trying something that is slightly different, which is we want you to stay here because we'll make you engage in this discussion by asking more polls, by the fact that you know that if you ask a good question, just like the one that you did, you'll now get 2 points. And with these 2 points, you can buy an NFT or you can cash out, right? So that's the gamification of communities that we expect. We are trying to have that one, the engagement engine, and not the scrolling from one community to another.
Can I just ask a question? Because I think I'm very cognizant of the fact that we are in the Gigaverse and we're doing this live at the moment, but there'll also be plenty of people that will be listening to this as an audio-based podcast in the future. So maybe you want to take people through a little bit about some of the features that are actually in the Gigaverse, but also interested in what's coming.
Sure. So currently we have a platform for many to many, as you can see. We built it in such a way that there is audience and then the hosts and people that are talking and asking. Obviously, there is a chat. There is, as I demonstrated before, you can create polls. You can moderate the discussion. You can have fact check and to enhance the discussion and other elements like that. In addition, immediately after this is done, we are creating the recording, obviously, of it, if you're recording it, and then highlights and various clips that you can immediately share with your audience, right? Mostly on the platform like Instagram and others, including the summary of the discussion. The transcript is here. The transcript mentions who is saying what, which is also something that is, you can have it in multiple languages, obviously, and we understand multiple languages, and the voice activation is also in languages. The community page is a page that you land when you want to see the recording or when you want to chat with your community. And this is something, for example, on Zoom that doesn't really exist, right? On Zoom, there is no community and thus is no discussion post-live, pre-live. We are now building the post-live and pre-live to become much more engaging as well, so that the host, for example, Jemma in this particular case, before the podcast, the community, knowing that now she's going to host someone, can ask questions beforehand, and after they can watch it together, they can watch the podcast. So elements to tie the live into the community in a better way. In terms of moderation, we're adding the video layer now. And the video layer understands the video first in order to moderate. So for example, you have on your back, right, being the voice, brilliance. But if you had something offensive, then we can also understand that. And we know that it's something that is happening, especially in discussions. So something offensive, and then we will have the alert. Oh, although Anthony is great, there is something offensive in that video, in addition to many, many other elements that are much more relevant to gardening together, cooking together, where the visual element is much more dominant than just the talking heads. Monetization is the biggest one that we're adding and that we are planning what to add. Obviously, we need to think how to build it, how to build this reward and point system. We're in discussion with some platform that we spoke to Lynn several times, the crypto experts that are around us. As you know, we have extensive list there. So we are thinking how to build a tokenization and points system that is suitable for us and makes sense for communities. It needs to be very, very simple because creators don't really understand it yet. So I would say that I put first monetization, then making the community elements much more alive. The AI can bring content. I said many things. We spoke now. The AI afterwards can not only summarize the discussion, but search the web tomorrow and come with, the competitors of Gigaverse are, right? And to open the room automatically. We are thinking, what makes the community a community, right? And there is some cadence. So every week at 8 a.m. on Wednesday, the room will open automatically. People get notified and people can join. Many ways to help community activators to build a community that is not only about the live element, but also about the async.
Awesome. You mentioned about paying for podcasts, like entry. Most podcasts are free. Do you see that as like a point of friction, or because they get to interact with the creators or they think that people they're fans of, then that makes it a bit more nuanced?
The podcast industry is, on one hand, it's growing. On the other hand, podcasters typically use it as a second hobby, right? And not as something to make money. When they try to make money off it, it's extremely challenging and it's very, very, very small amounts. So yes, many of them, and I would call the mid podcaster, but the one that are running more than, 30 shows already, right? And know how demanding it is to find podcasts, to find people to talk to, and then to monetize it. Yes, they definitely are thinking about ways to monetize, and ticketing is one of the first ones. The ad-based solutions for podcasters is also very, very limited. And obviously the platforms are taking a huge cut of it.
Yeah.
What's fascinating about podcasting content is that most podcasters forget about the content that they've already created. And I think that's where the interesting opportunities are as well, because it's cross-referencing and using the AI to bring back some of that content that's already been created and might have happened some time ago, but to bring that back to people, which is what doesn't really happen on Spotify and Apple and those platforms, to an extent happens on YouTube because of search.
Yeah, it's a very good point. And we need to think exactly how to make that part of the community live and part of the podcast live. By the way, the clock on the right will bring you all the sound bites and the fact check. But there was an interesting one with Castor that's suggesting the small audiences can earn between 0 to 100 per episode dollars. There are various ways for podcasters to earn money, sponsorship, advertisement, mentioned by this and that. So if you want to dive into the way that podcasters, basically the fact check, what we're doing is from analyzing the statement or the question, we're taking multiple questions out of it. We are searching the web. So I can ask now about stock market, and obviously I'll have immediate response. And then we are getting something like 30,000 pages and summarizing them into this read more element. So if you want to talk about stocks, so, Bitcoin is up 5% today. Let's fact check it. I have no idea if it's true or not. Probably not. The last 24 hours.
Down 1.7%.
Yeah. Okay. So you can see how you can utilize it.
Yeah. Omer, I'm going to just summarize this conversation in a moment. But just before I do, could you tell us your favorite song at the moment?
Favorite song? The only thing that comes to my mind, because I was walking the dogs earlier and found myself repeating it, it's not really a song. It's my son, my 8 years old, is learning piano and is actually very much into it. So yesterday evening, he was repeating some swing jazz piece. They don't even know, from his only kind of second year. But that stuck into my head and it was like flowing. And I said, whoa, where do these tunes come from? And yesterday was for 30 minutes playing it. So I got stuck with that.
Amazing. Well, that sounds better than some of the kids' songs that get stuck in your head.
Yeah, exactly.
Omer, I've really enjoyed the conversation with you today. I didn't know a great deal about the video industry and podcasting and AI in this context. And it's been great to use Gigaverse and experience all the different elements here that we've had in this conversation. And I found it really interesting to hear how one of the skills that you've had to fall upon as an entrepreneur is when to focus and when to be broad. And, that discernment skill is really important to create a growing and successful business. And I just wanted to congratulate you on the progress you've made so far with Gigaverse, with the amount of users. And I'm looking forward to using your platform again. And thank you so much for coming on Unblocked.
Thank you, Jemma. Thank you, Anthony. It was a pleasure.
That's all for this episode of Unblocked. Please check out the show notes for information on Power Ledger and other contact information. We welcome your comments and feedback, and please hit subscribe wherever you are listening. This podcast was produced by Podcasts Done For You. We look forward to your company next time on Unblocked.